Please. To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey. We get a roll call?
Yes, good evening. For the Camarillo Airport Authority, Supervisor Long,
Here.
Supervisor Lopez,
Here.
Vice Chair. Mayor Santangelo,
Here.
Councilmember Martinez Bravo,
Here.
and Chairperson Bear.
Here.
And we have a quorum. Thank you. I don't know that any of our alternates are here, so we'll catch the, if any appear. For Oxnard Airport Authority, Supervisor Long,
Here.
Supervisor Lopez, Councilmember Perrello, Councilmember Turan.
Here.
And Chair Fussell.
Here.
All right, everybody's here.
Okay, next we have a review of the agenda.
We do not have any changes or amendments to the agenda at this time.
Thank you. Next up is approval of the minutes. Any comment on the Camarillo side for approving the minutes?
I'll move the approval. I'll second.
Can we get a roll call for approving the Camarillo minutes?
We can. Camarillo, Supervisor Long,
Yes.
Supervisor Lopez.
Yes.
Mayor Santangelo,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez Bravo,
Yes.
Chairperson Bear.
Yes.
All right, that passes unanimous. And Oxnard.
Second.
Perrello and Turan. Okay, roll call for Oxnard Airport Authority Supervisor Long,
Yeah.
Vice Chair Lopez.
Yeah.
Councilmember Perrello.
Yes.
Councilmember Turan,
Yes.
Chair Fussell. All right, that passes unanimously.
Next up, public comment. Do we have anybody who wants to speak?
Two people present here have indicated they'd like to speak, and we have three online.
Why don't we take those here in person first?
All right. Well, actually, it may be that Lauren has asked twice. So would you like to go now or during that item? Okay, and they are different topics. Okay, perfect. Great. 3 minutes.
Hello, I'm Lauren De La Torre, a resident of Old Town Camarillo for the last 33 years. And I want to compliment you. It's always nice to have a compliment. And too many times we hear the other side, so it's nice to hear the positive. Thank you so much for bringing the Zoom meetings back. In March, there was a public speaker, he was sitting on this side, that spoke about the need for all residents to participate, especially those who can't attend for whatever reasons they cannot attend, or it's just easier for them to be able to hear the meeting just in their home setting. Zoom is a great tool for transparency, and I want to thank you very much for bringing it back, because that night in March, it sounded like it was gone for good. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. De La Torre. And do we have online people for the general public comment period?
We do. We're promoting first. Well, let's just make the call that it's going to be Walter Hagedorn. And as soon as he comes into the panelist, we'll get him loaded up and get his 3 minutes going. There it is. Walt, if you can hear us, we've got you queued in. You can show your camera if you wish and begin speaking, and we'll give you 3 minutes.
Thank you. Having a problem unmuting. Thank you. Good evening. Walter Hagedorn, Chair of Oxnard Shores Neighborhood Council. 2.5 years ago, we were asked to join a group of concerned citizens lobbying Oxnard Airport to restrict touch and go flights over
Mr. Nafi, why don't we go to the next person and see if Mr. Hagedorn can get his logistics worked
Okay.
out.
We will do that. We're promoting Ben Di Benedetto.
Okay, can you hear me? Hello?
We'll give you 3 minutes. Fire
Okay.
away.
Great. Yeah, I'd like to speak about the advisory commission meeting today. As you know, I've been very vocal about moving the advisory commission to the same day as the authority, and part of the reason for that is they have different bylaws requirements. And although the authority allows 3-minute public comment and also comment on agendized items, they do not have a mandate in their bylaws to deal with the public. And the Oxnard Advisory Commission does. So I've spoke to you many times about Brown Act issues. It could be a problem. And today I think we saw exactly what I was talking about. As you know, you no longer read comments for people that email in since you went back to Zoom, which creates a problem with people that can't speak, that do have something to say and are represented supposedly by the advisory commission. So those people aren't being heard. But today, nobody was heard. They went through the entire meeting today. They did allow for public comment on non-agendized items, but the entire agenda was presented, voted on, and moved through without one time asking for public comment on agendized items. Obviously, this is a huge violation of the Brown Act, but the committee was run today as if the public does not exist. And part of this comes from not having people able to participate when you move the meeting from an evening meeting to the morning meeting. Even though it's at noon, the idea that people that work don't have an opportunity is ludicrous. So far more people can speak in the evening. And if you had a written comment, the people that can't participate during the day could participate. Ms. Bird, the chairman of the committee, is completely over her head. I know that she's done 20 years and we appreciate her service, but she ran a meeting today with not even including the public, and she knows better, or should know better. Adriana Vandergaff was today voted in as the vice chair. We had a number of problems with her and the Brown Act and public speaking when she was chair the last time. And she didn't mention, oh, wait a minute, maybe we should be asking for public comment. And you would be looking at a 385-page budget tonight where no public people or means of communicating any opinion on that budget had Steve Tannehill not asked and had a second to move it to the next meeting. We deserve better. You need to do your job in what you're doing in scheduling these meetings. Thank you.
Do we have Mr. Hagedorn back?
We're checking. He's in the list and the hand is up. Yes, we could return to Mr. Hagedorn.
Hello, Walter Hagedorn, Chair of Oxnard Shores Neighborhood Council. 2.5 years ago, we were asked to join a group of concerned citizens lobbying Oxnard Airport to restrict touch and go flights over residential areas. Concerns over noise, safety, and pollution prompted our involvement, but it is the residential development around the airport that I'd like to discuss this evening. 2 weeks ago, there was a community workshop concerning the Avalon homes to be built in the Oxnard Dunes neighborhood. The environmental impact report produced in 2019 indicated that there were concerns about the airport, but as with so many of the projects that we have looked at, whether it's Teal Club, Portofino, Anacapa, or North Shores, these concerns were noted and then ignored. The North Shores development and the Avalon Homes development create a crescent from the old generating plant to almost Woolley Boulevard. Almost all the aircraft coming out of Oxnard Airport travel over these areas, usually at full throttle and at low altitude. When the North Shores development was under environmental impact review, the concerns were addressed by saying that flights would be directed by the tower to fly right to avoid the homes in North Shores and the homes south of 5th Street. This, of course, has not happened. The environmental impact report for Avalon Homes has not yet been certified, and we plan to provide comments. Specifically, it was noted that there should be work done with the Oxnard Airport in, quote, revising flight plans to minimize flyovers of residential areas, especially touch and go flight patterns flying low altitude and at relatively high frequency. The required discussion that followed that note did not address the problem, but stated that the Airport Land Use Commission would review the specific plan and make its recommendations. This seems to be contrary to the purpose of an environmental impact study, which would not only identify the problem, but suggest mitigation measures. We have found that this is consistent with the other developments around the area. We find it unacceptable that these developments, which continue to surround the airport, are not required to deal with this major problem. It was disappointing that despite assurances residential flyovers would be dealt with, this weekend was especially bad. We need more oversight on the part of those responsible for the airport, an honest discussion on the community benefit provided by Oxnard Airport and its responsibility to the neighbors that surround it. Thank you very much.
All right, next we have Joni Quintero.
Can you hear me?
We got you, Joni. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I too have concerns with the airport boards. With meetings on the same day, there is not time for the advisory recommendations to arrive and be reviewed for action by the authority. The working public, unable to attend daytime meetings, have no access to what has transpired and are no longer allowed to email their comments. Public access is being limited. Please separate meetings and follow the Brown Act. Regarding residential overflights, I commend Director Freitas and Jeanette's work educating flight schools on the Fly Friendly program. The basics are simple. They fly straight out of the airport, turn either before the canal or half-mile out to sea. Very simple, yet seems very hard for many pilots to follow. Since Flying Friendly is currently voluntary, it takes the cooperation of the aviation community to follow recommended flight patterns. We on the ground commend those that do, but there are many who have been educated but choose to set a bad example by not flying friendly. For example, CAU is an Oxnard flight school whose owner sits on the advisory commission and is featured in airport collateral promoting the Fly Friendly program. I'm aware of 9 CAU flights reported for not flying friendly the first week of this month. On May 1st, a CAU flight made a direct residential overflight at 8:36 p.m. This is not a heavy traffic period for this pilot to have deviated the recommended pattern for his safety. What excuse could there be for a pilot to deliberately overfly homes besides it being their choice to do so? If CAU cannot fly friendly nor lead by example, how is there any hope a voluntary program will keep the residents of Oxnard safe? There's been an increase in small plane crashes lately, one more today. The community is on record asking for better safety measures, yet planes continue to fly over homes at unsafe altitudes. Who will shoulder the liability should an accident occur? More individual hobbyists are being tracked flying over homes. How do they know about flying friendly when they arrive anytime from anywhere? There's no advanced education for individual, nor does the tower provide any clues. Without tower involvement nor directional signage upon their approach, individuals do their best, but the airport can do better. Instead of the runway sign that reads avoid residential overflights, it should be crystal clear and provide actual direction, like fly straight out and turn either before the canal or half mile out to sea. There must be better ways to allow planes to fly and the community to be safe and enjoy their homes. The two are not mutually exclusive. Pilots are the ones that have a choice. Our homes are built on solid foundations. We cannot move out of their way. But in the air, a pilot has a choice of where to turn and when to fly. It is your responsibility to make sure all pilots are making the choice to fly friendly over Oxnard. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Mark Karnick.
Hi, can you hear me?
We've got you. Thanks. 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, and good evening. I'm Mark Harnick. I'm the Vice President of CAHOTA. We are the organization of hangar owners at Camarillo and Oxnard airports. And I'd like to start tonight by commending the Airport Authority, the Commission, and of course the Department of Airports for what has turned out to be a very, very smooth and genial process by which the hangars are being converted to the long-term leases. I'm not aware of any significant complaints from hangar owners about this process, and that is to the credit of Keith Freitas and his staff at the Department of Airports. Hopefully, this process will conclude fairly soon, and then we can go back to kind of the quiet enjoyment of our hangars. I also want to speak for a moment on the importance of flight training. I understand the controversy, and I just want to reiterate, number one, that CAHOTA is, as an organization, is committed to the Fly Friendly program. We are taking positive steps to educate our members about the Fly Friendly program and what is involved for individual pilots that are members of our organization. We think that this is the best way to achieve the balance that we need to have between community respect for respect for the community, and also the very, very important job of flight training, which I want to talk about for a moment. You may remember in the last few months there have been many instances of canceled flights and disruption of travelers across the country. A lot of this disruption can be blamed on shortages of pilots, and it is vitally important that as we have built the best domestic air travel system in the world, that we maintain that by making sure a steady supply of pilots are coming into that program. And if you've flown on an airplane in the last 20 years, chances are the pilot got his initial flight training at a small airport just like Camarillo and Oxnard. And so while we fully respect the community and their efforts to maintain a friendly and safe flying environment, it's also important to underscore the importance of flight training, both for the economic interests of the United States and also for our own convenience and safety as air travelers. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak tonight, and I wish everybody the best.
That concludes the number of people who have indicated they wish to speak in this agenda item.
Okay. No other public comment. Let's move on to new business for the Camarillo Airport Authority. We're on 6A, authorization for the director to terminate the month-to-month lease with the state of California for the Department of Food and Agriculture at 295 Durley. Ms. Hurley.
Good evening, Chair Bear and authority members, some of whom I haven't met yet. I'm Madeline Hurley with a lease manager for the department. The item tonight regards a now expired lease with the State Department of Food and Agriculture that is located just southeast of the cafe, if you're familiar with the cafe here. And it's sits in the middle of a parking lot. The state signed a lease back in 2013 and it expired 8 years later. And it's been a month-to-month lease ever since. the reason that we're asking for your consent for the director to terminate the lease is because it was originally approved lease by the Board of Supervisors. So we've been advised by county council that we need the Board of Supervisors approval to terminate a lease, even though it now is a month-to-month agreement. The building is aged and no longer serves its prime function and will require some investment that at this point, the department decided that it would be better served as an aviation use for this area. And it forms a part of the leasehold for Sky 805. The Sky 805 operator has advised that he is definitely interested in maintaining the state office there for at least a couple of years while they work on their development plan. And so those two parties are now talking to each other for a future arrangement. The state also parked approximately 28 vehicles on county property on the other side of Durley. So those vehicles will need to be accommodated on the Sky 805 leasehold with a large parking area that is now in front of Hangar 2. Are there any questions?
So if the agreement between the two happen, then that agreement will come to us before it comes to the Board of Supervisors or no?
No, then it would be just between two private parties, if you will, the state being a separate party.
Perfect, thank you.
The 28 vehicles, Ms. Hurley, you said they were going to be on the Sky 805 leasehold?
Yeah.
Where, it's not going to be blocking the parking for the cafe, is it?
No, but I need a pointer. Sorry, I didn't think I did. I mean, obviously, it's up to the parties to arrange where they want to, but presumably, oh, darn it. Presumably, it would be in this parking area right here.
Thank you.
Okay. Right. Mhm. Are there any other questions? Mr. Perla?
I have a question, and I'm on the Oxnard, I'm not in the camera, room. Just as a point of clarification, you stated that it's going to be up to the Board of Supervisors. Why are you bringing it to us? I mean,
Because,
we have no say in this, correct?
no, you make a recommendation to the board,
And so you need
just
a
like any
recommend-
other matter. Yes,
You need a.
Yes, we do.
Thank you.
we
Thank
need
you.
your vote. Are there any other questions?
Comments? Can we get a vote? If we get a motion on this?
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second. We get a roll call?
We can. I was just checking the public to
Oh.
see if anybody was connecting on Zoom.
Thank
Would you like me to read out the instructions each time for leaving public comment through Zoom or once for all, or
I think
just let it go?
once is fine. Let's try to be efficient. I forgot to ask about public comments, so that was my mistake. So do we have any public comment on that?
We do not. I'll just read this once and then we'll take care of it. For those joining remotely, if you'd like to be added to the public comment queue, please be connected via Zoom. If not already connected and wish to make a public comment, you can find the Zoom link on the first page of the meeting agenda, which can be found at vcairports.org/meeting-calendar. If you wish to make a public comment on agenda item number 6A, please press the raise hand button now, or if you're calling in today, press star, then 9 to be added to the speaker queue.
Okay, so with no public comment on this, we have a motion and a second. We get a roll call.
For Camarillo Airport Authority, Supervisor Long.
Yes.
Supervisor Vice Chair Lopez. Mayor Santangelo,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez Bravo,
Yes.
Chair Bearer.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes for the Camarillo.
Next up is 6B, staff report on the airport layout plan. Ms. Powers.
Good evening. Yes, staff wish to provide your authority a brief update on the progress. Talk about a few of our accomplishments and next steps for the Camarillo Airport layout plan update. Mouthful, sorry. Oh, you don't use it? All right, so just to describe a few of our accomplishments to date, we have actually held our first information workshops on April 18th. We had approximately 160 attendees, which was a few more than we had originally anticipated. And that was in part due to some misinformation, some flyers that had been distributed leading up to the meeting. But we actually saw this as a great opportunity to reach out to those community members that may be confused by the information. So we think that the ability to speak to them and talk to their concerns went rather well in terms of sharing that information and hearing from the airport directly. We also, during that meeting and through our websites, have solicited comments regarding the airport layout plan update, including that we've developed the first 2 chapters of the study, and we've shared that with the public, and the public was able to provide comments either at the workshop or continuously through the website where the chapter studies were posted. Next slide, please. So what's next? This is really where everyone wants to know, where are we headed? Now that we have our first 2 chapters, and chapter 2 included our draft aviation forecasts, we need to send those off to the FAA for approval. This is a critical path item. FAA approval of the forecast is required, and it impacts our ability to develop additional materials and to set the next meeting dates. So we are planning to submit the Camarillo forecast to the FAA within the next few days. We are able to initiate some additional material development on a limited basis, and that is related to beginning to analyze the facility requirements. So we're going to be working on that while the forecasts are being reviewed by the FAA. We won't be able to get into too much more than that until we have FAA approval. And once we do, we'll be able to determine how much time we need to finish developing the next chapters to share with the public and set the meeting dates. We're hoping that right now we're estimating for July or August, but we don't control the timeline for the FAA's review, so that may need to be adjusted. And that is our update for the Camarillo ALP, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I don't have a question, but more a comment. I really wanted to say thank you for how the meeting went, where we had 160 people show up. I had Brian Miller, my chief of staff there, and he was very impressed. Wanted to pass that along as well. Our director, thank you very much. I think it was a great opportunity, like you said, to make sure that the community understands where we're going and what we're questioning and asking. I think that's very important. I also participated in an interview just to see what I thought personally as a board member about it. Again, update and upkeep was definitely my message for the airport. And I wanted to also appreciate the city of Camarillo sending out emails. I just got one today about the noise study in regards to that it was not, any construction from the city was not going to change our noise study findings and so forth. And I just really wanted to appreciate that partnership, because I think between the airports and the city, we can really do great work. And so I just wanted to say thank you.
Any other authority comments?
I have another comment, and it's very much in line with what Supervisor Long is stating. While I know that it was an unfortunate case with the disinformation flyers that were being disseminated throughout social media and throughout the community, I really appreciated Director Keith's efforts in handling that situation and in providing the correct information to our community. It's unfortunate that many, this caused so much anxiety among so many members of our community, many of them being elderly. So that, really concerned me. But I'm glad that you were able to find this as an opportunity to provide the correct information. And to the other point, yes, the city of Camarillo has been very active in promoting this correct information to our community. And as stated, there was a newsletter that was sent out today by email because there is going to be some construction at Old Town Camarillo. And my understanding is that with a study that is being conducted, the technology that is being utilized is able to capture just the aircraft noise and it won't be impacting the noise from the construction. So those were some issues that some community members had brought forth. So I appreciated that communication as well. But thank you, Ms. Powers, for your presentation.
Thank you.
I wanted to make one quick comment following up on something Dr. Martinez Morales said about the misinformation that came out just prior to that meeting and the flyers that came out that were completely inaccurate, false. And I want to commend Ms. Delatorre, who's here today. I'm on her email list for Old Town emails, and she made it a point of not amplifying the misinformation and tamping down when people were getting upset. And I think that went a long way. And so I appreciate your efforts, Ms. Delatorre. Do we have any public comment?
Nobody's on Zoom looking to speak.
Anybody in person?
Oh, pardon me, Chair, we do have one person who's indicated they'd like to speak. So we're promoting Cindy Dow. Ms. Dow, if you accept the prompt, and you can show your camera if you wish, and you'll have 3 minutes when you start speaking.
Can you hear me?
We got you. Go ahead.
Okay, so I do have a quick question in regards to placement or the noise. Will the pilots be aware of this? The specific times of when these noise stations that they're going to put in yards, or I have a timeline of when they're going to be done. Do the pilots have a timeline on this?
I think that would be a question to pose to the Department of Airports at some point. I'm not sure that that's on the agenda today and might be a Brown.
It was just, yeah, because we were talking about obviously the noise, and then obviously the streets are being repaved and tore up, but with the sound, and I know when it's going to be done. It's just it'd be kind of interesting to see if
I can speak to that when I do the noise study progress update.
Okay.
I'll include it.
Ms. Dow, if you would, could you save your comment for when we talk about the noise study later?
Oh, sure. My apologies.
No worries. And Ms. Powers said she's going to address that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we need a motion to receive?
Oh, that's been the custom.
Okay.
Yep.
Do we have a motion to receive and file the ALP update?
So moved.
Second. We get a roll call.
For Camarillo Airport Authority Supervisor Long,
Yeah.
Supervisor Vice Chair Lopez, Mayor Santangelo,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez Bravo,
Yes.
and Chairperson Bear.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Next up, item C. The approval of an authorization for the Director of Airports to sign amendment number 1 to the consulting services contract for the Part 50 noise compatibility study with Kaufman Associates, increasing the total amount of the contract by 35,000, she's 805, 943, increasing the airport's cost share from 42,402 to 77,402. We have Ms. Powers again.
Yes, thank you. Chair Bear, Commission, Authority members, excuse me. In July of 2022, the Department of Airports awarded a contract to Kaufman Associates for the noise compatibility study for Camarillo Airport in the amount of $770,943. The airport successfully initiated the study and we've held its first community meetings. But through this process, the airport has recognized that additional flexibility in contract deliverables would help staff better support community engagement. And, you know, what we're looking for is some flexibility to be able to add additional informational flyers or items as issues come up to, as we realize that perhaps there's some topics that are so aviation specific that we need to spend a little bit more time with the community explaining that we have the ability to add additional materials and also support them in interpretation and translation, as well as extending services if needed related to the noise monitoring. And for those reasons, staff is requesting your authority recommend the Board of Supervisors approve the proposed amendment to increase the contract by 35,000 to a total of $805,943. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a question since we're gonna have to vote on the same thing. The $35,000 is not spent. It's just give them flexibility to do some extra stuff if they need to.
Correct. It will be on a time and materials basis.
Okay.
So it would have to be authorized, request of the airport and then authorized by us up with a limit of 35,000 added to the contract, but it would be by request.
Thank you.
So there's two different contracts and each one is a separate cost, right? It's not a combined cost for the two studies.
Correct. We're looking for an additional 35,000 for Camarillo Airport, and then we will be seeking the same increase to the contract for Oxnard Airport for the noise study.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments? Any public comment?
None have indicated they wish to speak on this topic.
Okay, can we get a motion?
I will move with staff's recommendations.
I'll second, and thank you for making sure we're doing it.
We'll get a roll call.
For Camarillo Airport Authority Supervisor Long, Supervisor Vice Chair Lopez,
Yes.
Mayor Santangelo,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez Bravo,
Yes.
Chairperson Bear.
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
thanks, Ms. Brown.
I'm afraid you're going to hear from me a few times tonight.
Welcome.
For Oxnard, for approval and authorization for the Director of Airports or his designee to add $35,000, which would bring the total up to $805,000 for the airport's cost share of the contract. Ms. Power just explained this. I don't know what she needs to do it again. I would think not. And I'm ready for an emotion. Public comments? Any public comments?
We do not have anybody indicating that they'd like to speak on this item. Go ahead, Mr.
Thank you. Just a quick question, just for the benefit of the public, Ms. Powers, could you just clarify, is there any difference between the item we just took with the Camarillo Airport Authority and the items before the Oxnard Airport Authority?
There is not.
Thank you. Okay, and with that, I'll make the motion if there are no comments.
It's been motion and second. Do we have a roll call?
Yes, for the Oxnard Airport Authority Supervisor Long,
Yes.
Supervisor Vice Chair Lopez.
Yes.
Councilmember Perrello,
Yes.
Councilmember Turan,
Yes.
Chair Fussell.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously.
All right, good evening. I apologize. I should have waited for you to introduce the item.
This is for both authorities. And it's receive and file staff update on the part 150 noise compatible. Ms. Powers, long time no see.
Yes, thank you very much. I jumped the gun there. So Chair Bear, authority members, now I'm going to get marble mouth. We wanted to share the progress as we did with the Camarillo ALP update for both the Camarillo and Oxnard noise study. Some of the accomplishments to date have included that we formed the PAC committees, and for Camarillo Airport, we had approximately 35 in attendance at our first PAC meeting. For Oxnard, we had approximately 25 individuals attend our first PAC meeting. We also held those PAC meetings and initiated the first public meeting for Camarillo. That was on March 20th, and we had approximately 65 people attend. For Oxnard, the next day, on March 21st, we had approximately 26 members of the public attend. We developed the first 2 chapters of the noise study, and we shared that with the public and with the PAC members. The same information was available to both and posted on our websites, and comments were solicited. And then our last task was that we did actually solicit for volunteers for the noise monitoring. If we could go to the next slide, please. For both Camarillo and Oxnard airports, we are required to send our forecasts, our aviation forecasts for approval to the FAA. As I mentioned, the Camarillo aviation forecasts are in the process of being packaged up and will be submitted within the next few days. And Oxnard's aviation forecasts, we received a few comments that we're reviewing to see if any adjustments are needed. And we expect that to follow shortly for submission to the FAA. But both of them are going to be in a mid-May submission timeframe. The FAA approval of our forecast does impact material development and meeting dates. So what we are going to do in the meantime is we are able to proceed with some elements, which includes developing the noise exposure maps, or the NEMs. That is a model-based or computer model-based program, so we can move forward with that. And then we are also going to conduct our noise monitoring to confirm the models with actual insight samples. And I believe Ms. Dow had asked whether the pilots would have that information. All we are sharing with the public is that we are going to be conducting those noise measurements in the May-June timeframe. So there is no specific dates, and we are sharing it. The only people who will actually know where a noise monitor location will be the volunteers that will be having equipment in their backyard. And finally, once we do have that forecast approval, we will be setting the dates for the next PAC and public meetings. We hope that we're able to meet our estimate of a July-August timeframe, but we don't control the FAA's review time, and they will have 2 aviation forecasts in the pipeline. So we will update the public and your body as soon as we have information and make sure that there's enough time for everyone to understand when the meetings will be held next. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Yes.
Just to make sure we're following all the rules. So the noise testing is standard for airports with FAA. We're using everything that they're requiring and making sure they're doing it correct to their plan.
Yes, so the FAA, that's correct. The FAA doesn't actually require noise monitoring. They base their NEMs off of the computer model.
Okay.
We are using their regulations and the computer model that they dictate. And so we're following their rules. We are able, as an elective, to add in some noise monitoring to to sort of check that model against real-time samples to see to make sure everything's in alignment. And we are doing that with approved methodology.
Right, and I wanted to bring that up for our community to understand that as well, is that this NIT authority is taking that action to do additional noise monitoring to check those models, because we want to make sure that we're sending the right information and that it's as correct as we possibly can. So thank you for doing that due diligence.
Absolutely.
I have a follow-up question to that. With the noise monitoring system, it's not going to be disclosed where they're located. So is the data that will be collected randomly selected, or is it an ongoing recording of that noise between May and June? If you're able to share, I understand there's some limitations.
Sure. So just to be clear, even though we're not going to be sharing the exact locations, we are developing a map that will show the general vicinity of the noise monitors so that the public and your body can understand the areas that we will be trying to cover with those noise monitors. So we are finalizing our locations, and once those maps are available, we'll be sharing that both through email, through this, both the Camarillo, the city of Camarillo and the city of Oxnard have been great partners in helping disseminate our messaging. And so, and certainly, Jeanette, our PIO, works with the city's PIOs to try to expand our message. So we'll be, once we have those available, we'll post them to the study websites, but we'll also do some email communications to get that information as fully as possible. Now, I apologize, the second question you had?
Yeah, is it and capturing the noise from like daily, like 24?
So
hours?
we have various, we will have models that we have 1 day, 2 day, and 3 day, up to 72-hour monitors. And so we will be moving them around, but they will be in a location and they will be capturing the noise above certain thresholds for that entire period. So anything that
65. Yeah, and going to the question that came from Cindy previously, the locations, we're not sharing the locations or the time, the dates in which we are doing the testing. Obviously, the homeowners we're working with will know that, but that's it. So when we place a monitor, it is 24 hours and it records that. And, during that time frame, as Aaron talked about, some locations are for multiple days. And then the recordings, that's part of what our consultant does, is they go back, they've set up the software to do what they think is an airplane, it captures it, 30 seconds away over the top, it's the loudest, and then it goes by you. There's kind of a bell-shaped curve of that noise. It captures that, records that, what they think is an airplane. And then the consultant goes back and by ear listens to all of those in which the computer says this is an airplane. And then they can throw out the barking dog, or if there was some construction going on or something like that. So that's how the whole program works. And thank you for the question about
this is an addition to the computer modeling that's done. We're doing above and beyond to actually do the physical modeling to verify.
Thank you.
Yes, and just one more question in regards, I was at the Regional Defense Partnership 21st Century Technology. It's the partnership with the Navy base. And they had stated, the commanding officer had stated that there's going to be some commands doing missions just in the next month or two. And so I just wanted to put that on our radar, though it might be farther away. The airplanes can be loud depending on how many and if it's a Super Hornet and so forth. So I just want to make sure that that's in consideration when we're doing that.
Yeah, I mean, the one-off airplanes usually wouldn't, change the model significantly. But those are opportunities, and with our new VNOM system that tracks airplanes, if there's something unusual, we can go back and try to identify that there's something that really stands out.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Ron.
Thank you. Just to, I guess, follow up on Supervisor Long and Supervisor Lopez's line of questions there. It sounds to me like the research and survey methodology we're using for this particular item, it sounds like there's methodology standards we're looking at that will ensure we have valid data, such as geographic diversity, undisclosed survey locations. So folks in the public can know that the Department of Airports isn't, or the consultant aren't strategically placing these so far away that it sounds like, oh, there's no noise at all, or so close that, oh, there's constant noise. And it sounds like we're accounting for all of that. Is that correct?
Absolutely. We're trying to be as fair as possible. And in fact, I think we're looking to accept the volunteers that are in some of the highest traffic areas to be able to account for that, for the noise that complaints that we are hearing about. So
Great, thank you. And I can just say at the Oxnard Airport, off the top of my head, I believe Monday and Tuesday are the trash pickup days for the neighborhoods north of the airport and east of the airport. And so it sounds like the noise monitoring system will automatically be able to discern between a trash truck driving by and sticking around for a few seconds versus an airplane flying over, correct?
that is my understanding.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Mr. Perrello.
Thank you for the report. Two questions. Is the airport, Camarillo or Oxnard, a radius from the center of the airport that monitors would be going out a specific distance equally to the two airports? The reason I'm asking, I live in the north end of Oxnard. I'm getting people in my neighborhood asking me how come the jets are flying over Camarillo, over the neighborhood. And I'm like, I don't know the answer. They're going somewhere. And they've asked, is that going to be in the airport monitor? I don't know. So that's, and they're definitely coming from Camarillo.
So it is my understanding that as part of the analysis, even though we are doing this, we're doing two separate studies. And when we do noise monitoring for Oxnard, they are focused on Oxnard Airport and the air traffic focused around Oxnard Airport. So they will be looking to distinguish whether and to exclude aircraft focused on Camarillo, where there may be a little bit of overlap, and vice versa for Camarillo Airport.
Thank you.
Do we have any public comment?
Chair, we do. We have two on Zoom and one here in the room.
Why don't we take the live person first, and then we'll take Zoom.
All right, you're up. Go ahead.
Hello again, Lauren De La Torre from Old Town Camarillo, and I wanted to talk about the noise devices also. I do know of one resident who has told me that they did get an email from Corey Lewis and the Kaufman and Associates asking if it would be okay if the device was put on their property, and they agreed to that. I know at least 11 residents that have put the request in to have the device put on their property, but they have not heard. Well, I shouldn't say that. the one that I spoke to today, she had not heard anything about whether or not she was going to get a device. So I'm wondering if that's all completed already, and maybe the 11 residents that I thought were getting one are not going to be able to get one. I'd love to know how many are going to be based in Old Town, since that's where a lot of the noise comes from. And I also have a really strong opinion on the idea that the noise device should be placed on top of the Cedar Drive water tower, which is on the corner of Grandview and Cedar Drive. It is the water tower where jets fly over constantly all day long. It would be a great, great spot for that, to have the noise device be there to get some great data too. I'm not sure if that's going to happen. I certainly hope so. I do have a fun suggestion that I thought of a ways back was you could save all this money and just put a lawn chair in the middle of Grandview right there at the top there, and have someone with a clipboard and a tape recorder. And within a couple days time, you would have huge amount of data saying how many aircraft fly over Old Town on a daily basis. My husband told me it's like where we live. It used to be a kind of a quaint car that drove up our street. When we had small aviation, and we still do have small aviation, it was like a car driving up the street. Well, now it's like a train driving up the street instead. The noise level is so different. I do want to end with a positive comment too, and I want to thank the city of Camarillo and the Department of Airports for their communication that came out today, emailing and explaining about the street improvement program, how that would not interfere with the noise devices, study equipment. At one point, it was brought up that maybe dogs barking were not a good idea to have, so maybe you shouldn't have a noise device on your property, but it sounds like dogs are not being a problem either. So I'm glad this is going through. I hope it gets some really accurate data. I have concerns living. The difference of my livelihood and my life on Oak Street has changed so much in the last 5 years. I don't like it, and I would like to see it go back to more of a more charming lifestyle. Thank you.
Ms. Powers, could you speak briefly to the process, Kaufman's process about selecting sites, and whether the sites have already been selected and there's other people in Old Town are going to or not going to get devices?
So we have solicited volunteers, and we have 8 noise monitors, and we are looking to have representation in Old Town. We have not finalized our locations as we try to finalize confirmations with residents for the ability to place equipment in their backyard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I ask that those who did request it, whether they find out whether they're going to get it or not, they can get an email just saying, thank you very much. We've passed on, we've picked our selection and really appreciate your offer.
Yes, absolutely. When the process is completed, because we are working our way, through the information, we're happy to communicate that the selection is complete.
Thank you, Ms. Powers. Thank you. Mr. Nafee, we have some online comments.
Yes, I believe we can have Ms. Dow return.
No, I didn't have my hand raised.
Oh, you're okay. I thought you were going to speak to this item.
Oh, no. Thank you very much for answering that question. I mean, the pilots aren't going to know ahead of time, which is great, but one pilot sees a location and the word's going to spread. But I understand that you're doing this for the benefit of us here in those are not just specifically Old Town, but everybody that's affected. So I do appreciate that.
All right, very good. We do have one other with a phone number 8387. We're promoting them to a panelist. Once they link up, then we'll make contact and they can introduce themselves, show video if they like, and they have 3 minutes. Caller,
Can you hear me?
yes, we've got you now. Thank you.
Hi. My name is Douglas Portello. I am the neighborhood council in Oxnard, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn here to speak about Oxnard Airport, that portion of the study. May I speak on that?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello?
Caller, yeah, Mr. Partella, yes, you are perfectly fine to address your comments to Oxnard.
Okay, thank you very much. I have one concern with the study that I'm hopeful that it will follow along the same lines that the 1998 study did. So in reviewing that, there was a particular issue about the decibel levels exceeding 65 in a particular area on Little Farm Road. So in my reading of that study, there's the proximity of those residences and homes is very close to the runway there. And they found a consistent pattern of, times in which the decibel level exceeded that acceptable level. So I'm very hopeful that in the areas in particular that were highlighted that are, somewhat between Teal Club and Little Farm Road, that monitors will certainly be placed in those areas, as it was found that those decibel levels were high just because it's just so close to the runway there. And those recommendations that the county purchased those homes because it was unsafe for people to live there. And those recommendations were not followed through on. So there have been folks that have been living there for quite some time. And so we know that decibel levels over 65 have a profound health impact. And that we don't know of those residents, but certainly given that we're concerned enough here in this area to have another study done, I'm very thankful that the County of Ventura and the Airport Authority is taking that step to do the study. So I'm very grateful that this is happening, because then it'll address a lot of concerns and issues. So for me, that's one particular issue. The other issue is the land use for the proposed Teal Club project. So what once was not deemed safe for development, now Oxnard's pushing through to have this 990 resident development with businesses and light industrial in that area. And so there's a lot of us in the Cabrillo neighborhood that have concerns not only for safety, but for the safety of those new residents coming in. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, we do have one more, Ben Di Benedetto.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I just want to point out that the 150 study, once it's set to the FAA and is accepted by the FAA, relates exactly to the disclosures, the natural hazard disclosures that are prepared for any development around the airport. And we've had problems with this before, because what we're experiencing now as flight paths was not in the 1998 study, which was the basis for the natural hazard disclosures that we all dealt with 20 some odd years ago. The Portofino development has been entitled across the street from the airport. The second EIR, an updated EIR on the Avalon development, which is next to the Dunes neighborhood on the north side of Harbor, south of Fifth, has been updated, and there is no study done by the developer on airport noise. He relied on the old 150 study, and it says that they don't fly over it. Well, we were not given an opportunity to comment on the EIR, but on the updated one we were, and we wrote a letter, we being the Transportation Committee of the Oxnard Shores Neighborhood Council, and pointed out the issue that the planes do fly over quite readily and regularly and quite loudly, and that this is going to relate to this study that of what the disclosure is going to be. And the developer could find himself in a place where he really should have put in thermal pane windows or had a different layout in the development or any number of things. That situation exists with the Portofino development and the proposed new Teal Club development as well. And actually, if you look at the safety perimeters on the airport based on the charts that are in the airport layout handbook, it shows that North Shore is in the outer safety zone as well. So I would caution everyone to make sure that this noise study is done properly, that perhaps a third-party verification should be done at the expense of the developer if the city or the county doesn't want to step up, where the noise is measured in their new development and proposed development areas so that the proper disclosures are made. The other suggestion that I have is that you tell Maggie Bird on the advisory commission to not cancel the meeting because there's no reason to meet when we just had the first meeting of the 150 study and the commission actually has a member on the study to report to the community. Again, another missed opportunity to have public input on what's going on with this airport. So thank you so much.
Chair, we have no other comments.
Is there a Bill Thomas hand up on there?
Oh. Yes, let me see the screen. We do, he's joining.
Hi, do you hear me?
It's a bit choppy, but let's see if it stabilizes. Go ahead.
I only had a question and it's a short one. I don't need 3 minutes. Is there a plan to either by the folks running the analysis or the airport to correlate the audio tracks with flight tracks, including using ADSB? That's all. That was the only question I had.
Ms. Powers, Director Freitas, can one of you speak to that?
As I mentioned, if there's something unusual or an outlier that we might want to find out what that is, we could use that. But no, the standard is not to correlate ADSB or flight tracks with each of the noise events.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
I believe that concludes our public comment, Chair.
More comment from the authorities? Mr. Perrella.
Staff, we've had people give specific areas where they hope that somebody will have monitored. My understanding is people have to volunteer. Have there been volunteers for the areas that have been mentioned? Little Farm Road, Teal Club, the developments there's no houses on the developments. Those property owners have volunteered to have a monitor.
So we have various volunteers, but it's not in all the locations that you've mentioned.
Thank you. Well, it's too late to volunteer if there's people that are that hot to trot, get somebody to volunteer.
So so we have secured most of the locations and we're trying to get a good disbursement and representation around the airport, including the areas where we receive the most complaints, sort of the hot zones where people feel impacted by the noise the most that they're reporting. But we also are in any area that we are deficient in a volunteer, we are working channels to try to correct that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If there are no other authority comments, thank you, Ms. Powers. Do we need 2 motions, one for each authority?
That's customary, yes.
So for the Camarillo Authority, I move that we receive and file the Part 150 noise study.
I'll second.
All right, for the Camarillo Airport Authority, Supervisor Long, Supervisor Vice Chair Lopez,
Yes.
Mayor Santangelo,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez Bravo,
Yes.
Chairperson Bear.
Yes.
I'll move to receive and file.
Second.
Sorry about that. It's been motion and second that we receive and file the 150 report.
Perfect. For the Oxnard Airport Authority Supervisor Long.
Yes.
Supervisor Vice Chair Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Perrello,
Yes.
Councilmember Tehran,
Yes.
Chair Fussell.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Next up, we have 6F. And I will just read the beginning. Otherwise, we'll be here all night. Approval of the Department of Airports fiscal year 2023 rent and fee schedule effective July 1, 2023. Director Paredes.
Chairs and committee members, authority members. So every year we do our rates and fees that we ultimately will present to the Board of Supervisors for approval. I'll move quickly to our summary sheet to pull that up. You'll notice we got basically 6 changes, and the first 3 are reductions in fees or stay the same. So most important to most of our tenants, hangar and tie down rates, we're not changing this year. One big one, item 2, flowage and storage fees for unleaded fuel. So we've heard a lot about avgas and it transitioning to unleaded fuel. We have, as an incentive, we're recommending that we would waive the per gallon fee and the fuel storage fee in the tanks for this coming year as an incentive to as the whole aviation transitions to unleaded fuel for avgas. And then in an effort to encourage folks that do things like mobile mechanics permits with us, we're proposing a reduction from $1,879 to $750. And then if you maintain with us that permit the next year and every year after that you maintain consistency currency with us is $500. Kind of encourage the process to be permitted with us. And then the item 4 and 5, disabled aircraft causing closures more than 2 hours. So we haven't had this in the past where I came from in Contra Costa County. We've had that. So an airplane was disabled on the runway. Luckily, we had multiple runways. So when one was shut down, we had another option. We don't have that at Oxnard and Camarillo Airport. And the situation was that we were looking to remove it out of the runway safety area. And the owner with their insurance company said, well, I'm trying to get a crane secured. I'm gonna have to leave the airplane there for a day. So in Oxnard and Camarillo's case, that would be shutting down the entire airport because they were searching for, the cheapest rate to get somebody to pull that airplane off. So we want to make that a disincentive to do something like that, as opposed to just pulling it off. There might be some damage, but we need to get it out so that we can get the runway back and airport operational. So that was a first. And item 5 is something that we do see, airplanes that are disabled, they're parked on our ramp and then left because the monthly rate is so low. Again, we want to be at a disincentive for the insurance companies to just leave that broken airplane on our ramp, leaking and other things that are hazards for us. So those are the 2 items 4 and 5. And the last is just the update, cost recovery of the rates for staff time on special projects. So any questions? I'm happy to answer those.
I have a couple of comments. Reducing the aviation commercial activity permit rates is a great idea. Hopefully it'll incentivize more people to come to the airport and do work on hangars, on planes. So kudos to you and your staff for that. Also waiving the fees for unleaded fuel to incentivize people. Great for the environment. Great idea. So really great to see that. On the subject of the disabled aircraft after 2 hours, you and I talked about this. I'd like to see language at the discretion of the Department of Airports or the Director of Airports in there, only because there could be extenuating circumstances, hazardous materials that need to be, secured or taken care of before it moves. Just to be fair to the plane owner of the insurance company. But
I don't have any issue with adding discretionary authority in that. Sure.
any other comments? Mr. Perrella?
Yeah, I'm not challenging the leaving the plane, but the runway is a public picture. The highways are a public picture. If I crack up my car, whether it's $1 million car or a $200 junker, they're going to tow it off the street. And you've mentioned that you had experience with this, I believe, somewhere else you work. Can you give me the scenario how that works? Because my understanding is from what I'm hearing here, you could tie up the entire airport waiting for this guy to make up his mind, drag it off.
Yeah, so
And I'm not trying to be a hard case.
no, the event was, and it was, it wasn't a Cessna 172 at, 50,000. It was a multi-million-dollar jet was the scenario. And it was, if you touch that, we're going to sue you, if you damage it. And, we would have done that if we needed to. Again, we had another runway, so we had other options. But I was thinking in this scenario, we don't have those options. It just makes it more of an incentive to. And you're right, we make that decision just to tow it off if we needed to. Thank you.
I do agree with Chair Bear's comment in regards to giving our director some leeway on that. So is there any wording that we would have to put into that or could we approve the fee schedule as is today with that amendment just to include directors leeway?
That would be my recommendation if that's what the feeling is of the two authorities, is to approve with the looking at that language. And we'll talk to county council about what we would need to add to our proposed rates and fees.
I think we could do it with that just amendment. So I wanted to clarify it. Thank
Mr. Tron?
Thank you. And thank you, Director Freitas, for the information on this. I support what was brought up by our chair and by Supervisor Long, but just to kind of play the devil's advocate on this, in your professional opinion, not you as Director Freitas, but as a director in general of county airports, do you foresee a situation where somebody might say, well, hey, this is your discretion, why don't you give me a break here? Where if there was no discretion, the director could say, I'm sorry, this is the rule, and you're not the bad guy, the rules are the bad guy. So I'm just throwing that out there to see if in your professional opinion, if you think that's something that might come into play where someone thinks that you're going to be favoring some versus others.
No question about it. And I can guarantee doing this for 30 plus years that whether the language is in there or not, they'll ask. That's guaranteed. So, but that's, we would have to justify why, and we set precedent and, understand that we do it once, we're setting that precedent. But they will always ask again, whether that language is in there or not. Hey, come on, give me a break. It's, and we wouldn't be at 2 hours and 5 minutes. Oh, there's your first 1,000. It's reasonableness in what we're doing.
Okay, I think the reasonableness is the key phrase there. So thank you.
Right.
Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate that.
I want to offer my kudos to Director Freitas and his staff, particularly for number 2 and 3, as pointed out by Chair Bear. I think that's a very positive quantum mechanics, particularly. I always thought that was extravagant, and I'm happy to see that. And also, there are a lot of people complaining about the lead, and I think you guys have stepped up in making it easier for guys to buy the unleaded jet. Thank you.
Any other comments? Do we have any public comment, Mr. Mayor?
Nobody's in the queue to speak from Zoom.
Okay, can we get a Camarillo side of the house? Can we get a motion?
So moved.
Second. Get a roll call.
Just point of order, Chair. Do we want to put in the proviso that
Ah.
that we have the discretion piece added in.
So
Yes, so why don't we revise the motion
I'll revise my motion to include the suggested language.
and a second?
All right, first and second received for the Camarillo Airport Authority Supervisor Long.
Yes.
Supervisor Vice Chair Lopez,
Yes.
Mayor Santangelo,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez Bravo,
Yes.
Chair Bearer.
Because I'm a hangar owner, and the rents and fees set my ground rate, just to avoid the appearance of a conflict, I'm going to abstain.
Very good. And a motion for Oxnard.
Okay, for Oxnard, on the same motion, can we get somebody? That was the. Yes. I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
It's been motion and second, on the same motion, can, we get a roll call?
You bet. For Oxnard Airport Authority Supervisor Long,
Yes.
Supervisor Vice Chair Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Perillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Taran,
Yes.
Chair Fussil.
For the same reason that, Chair Bear, I own a hangar at Oxnard Airport. To make it that I don't have a personal interest there, I'll just abstain.
Very good. That motion also passes with one abstention.
Next up, review of the 2023-24 proposed budget.
Chairs and authority members, I've been advised by Erin that I need to get back up here because she's tired of talking. She needs more of a break, so a few more before she comes back. So you have in your packet, our lengthy, budget that we are about to, send to our Board of Supervisors. I will just go through the summary page, for us. Important to note, again, Airport Enterprise Fund, we do not take any of the county's general fund. You've heard many of my presentations on that. In the very bottom line, you'll see our salaries and service supplies, expenses, and then revenues. The very bottom yellow is most important. Again, we are surplus with our operating expenses. That excludes the $1.664 million in depreciation for the two airports. We're fortunate, again, even though we depreciate those capital assets that we have, runways and taxiways and buildings, most of that is reimbursed through grants, federal grants, because we're part of the national transportation system. So we're fortunate in that. And our reserves, our annual budget's about 9-10 million a year. And I just confirmed with our accounting team, we sit today with $19 million in reserves. Now we'll need a lot of those as you will see in the next group of presentations with the amount of capital projects that are heading our ways over the next 5 or so years. But here's a quick summary and revenues, expenses that includes depreciation of that 1.664 million. But excluding depreciation, we're positive about $219,000. Open to any questions, comments?
Questions, comments?
Yes.
Mr. Perillo.
Yes. When we talk about our reserves, it's combined Oxnard and Camarillo, correct?
That is correct. We're one enterprise fund. Again, we break these out for budgeting purposes, obviously, different cost centers for the two airports.
Thank you. The reason I ask is there are some members of the public that like to say Oxnard doesn't make any money, so it should be closed. But it's a cool organization, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
And as an organization, in real dollars, not with the depreciation added in, we're operating at a $220,000 in the black.
Correct.
If I could, to Councilmember Furlow's comment, I think it's completely correct to state that it is very useful to have the Oxnard Airport along with the Camarillo Airport. I think that's what provides such great transparency for this county to have both of those operating as needed, especially with, we have the Santa Paula Airport. It's crucial. I would definitely agree in not shutting down any of those airports. So appreciate that. Thank you.
And I would like to, add, and thank you, Supervisor Long for that, and Councilmember Farrello. If you looked at the two airports, they are very different airports. And when we go market to businesses, that's, it's part of the selling point. Because Ventura County has these two very distinct airports. And that, we just attracted a new startup company, renting office space at Oxnard Airport. Had the available space, they kind of like being in a remote, less busy airport. And it was the right fit.
A question, and I think this would not be inconsistent with the Brown Act, but if anybody feels it is, then I withdraw it. Where are we on the repairs of the terminal?
No, because it touches our budget.
That's
So
what I was thinking. Yeah.
yes, again, it was a fire that was started by one of our tenants. So that we have a risk management involved in all that. That has caused, like any construction project, you touch one thing, now you touch other things, electrical, flooring. We had asbestos in the ceiling and the floor, so it started to migrate. We're probably approaching $500,000 in repairs. Some of those will be ours. Most of those will be to the insurance company of our tenant. And the timing at this point is we're looking sometime in August to have that wrapped up.
Thank you.
One other thing just to point out is because like you stated, we only have one runway for Camarillo and one runway for Oxnard. And we utilize both airports in case of an emergency. And I think that's another really important point that was brought to my attention. So thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Do we have any comments from members of the public, Mr. Mayor?
Nobody is in the queue to speak on this item.
Okay. We have a motion from the Camarillo side of the house on the proposed budget.
I'll motion to approve the budget as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second for Camarillo Airport Authority Supervisor Long.
Yes.
Supervisor Vice Chair Lopez,
Yes.
Mayor Santangelo,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez Bravo,
Yes.
Chair Bearer.
Yes.
Okay, from the Oxnard side of the house, can we get a motion for approval of the budget?
So move.
Second. Been moved in second. We get a
Okay, for the Oxnard Airport Authority Supervisor Long,
Yes.
Supervisor Vice Chair Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Perillo,
yes.
Councilmember Teran,
Yes.
Chair Fussell,
Yes.
and that motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Yes, it's been a little while. I appreciate the break. Good evening. So before you, staff is seeking approval of or your recommendation to the Board of Supervisors of the approval of our 5-year capital improvement plan for the Camarillo and Oxnard airports, as well as authorization for the Director of Airports or his designee to apply for grants to fund projects scheduled for federal fiscal years 23 and 24 upon notification from the Federal Aviation Administration and the California Department of Transportation Aeronautics Program that funds are available. Some of you may recall that I do this presentation every year, and that is because in order to coordinate the funding of capital improvements throughout the nation's aviation system, the FAA and Caltrans require that airport sponsors maintain a minimum 5-year airport capital improvement plan. And so we need to update that plan each year to comply with those requirements. We are I'm going to run through the next 5 years of projects for each airport. It sounds worse than it will be after a long night, but I do want to just a couple of notes before I dive in. And I just want to make sure that it's noted that the capital improvement plan includes only those airport projects eligible excuse, for federal and state grants. So this isn't the full capital improvement plan for the airport. This is only focused on those projects eligible for federal and state grants. The projects listed in the capital improvement plan are listed in the order of highest priority. And there is no guarantee that any project will receive grant or local funding approval in the year requested. And so with that, we'll start with Camarillo Airport. And over the next 5 years, we are we are projecting big project funding needs in almost $80 million. Most of this is driven by the Camarillo runway and taxiway connector reconstruction. But I'll go ahead and run through briefly the plan. In federal fiscal year 2023, which is right now, I've included this one I'm sorry. Okay. We submitted an application for the final design grant for the 2026 runway and taxiway reconstruction. The FAA has informed us that they don't believe they're going to have the funding to fund this in 2023. But if any end of year funding comes up, we have our application and we'll be able to move forward. But we are able to, in our project timeline, we knew this was always a possibility, and we are able to shift that to 2024. So that project will roll over into next year's plan. Right now, we are showing for 2024, 2025, no project years. That is to accommodate the ability to complete the final design, but also our funding request is going to be rather large. So we're saving up our entitlements. We're saving and looking to also save up some additional federal funding under a different funding program to help offset some of the airport improvement plan or program dollars. In 2026, that's when we're looking to actually perform the reconstruction of the runway and taxiways, the taxiway connectors. In all likelihood, the FAA has told us that they won't have all that funding in 1 year. So we also are showing in 2027 a no project year, as it's likely we're going to have to figure out how to best phase this project. And it's complicated, so we need the time. In 2028, we're going to get the airport back into maintenance mode and focus on some of our Portland concrete pavements. That's the area in red. And I do want to note that as we adjust leaseholds that you may have noticed have been coming before you, where tenants start to take on greater responsibility, we will be excluding those areas from our CIP, as they won't be grant eligible, and they'll be the responsibility of the tenant to improve or maintain. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions for Camarillo. Related to Camarillo Airport, not
Yes.
just Camarillo.
Yes, thank you. Given that there is no guarantee for, federal grants or any type of grants, and you alluded to this a little bit, but I just want to understand, what is the plan of action from staff in terms of how to best be prepared? And I'm hearing like there is some communications that are continuously happening, just so you're not caught off guard when we have such an important project that's either due or overdue, as was stated in the report. So if you can speak a little bit as to, your strategic plan or plan moving forward with any type of grant applications.
Sure. So so this plan is also the 5-year CIP is a plan that we coordinate with the FAA. As a matter of fact, we actually start off before we even come to this authority. We have pre-meetings, or we call them ACIP meetings, Airport Capital Improvement Plan meetings with the FAA, where we bring our draft capital or CIP, and we work with the FAA to make any adjustments based on the exchange of information about funding priorities that may impact our schedule. And so the actual CIP before you is adjusted from the draft that we previously coordinated with the FAA. And then even after that, even for projects that the FAA believes they may go forward, funding is uncertain. And so it's always essentially it requires a good communication plan, and that's what we do. We are constantly coordinating with the FAA on the status of projects in the pipeline. And we work with them when, on a project of this scale, we have to partner together to figure out how we're going to accomplish it, because Camarillo Airport runways are one of the highest priority projects for the FAA. And having, airport with the type of operations we have without a viable runway is not something that they want to see happen. So we just work with them closely to on all phases, environmental, on the design, the preliminary design, the design, up through actual bidding of the project and construction.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Powers.
Quick question, with the red, the cement, spot that you were showing, if at any time we wanted to move this up since we weren't doing the runway, is that something that we would be looking at? Or if any of the VCs wanted it done sooner? I'm just wondering the flexibility.
So the FAA is, as you can imagine, the programming is actually not super flexible, but that doesn't mean that anything's impossible. Essentially, the first 3 years, the 23, 24, 25 are usually sort of the windows where once the programs need to be within that window, and sometimes you can move those around, but outer years, it's much harder to move in because it takes years of planning for them to align the funding for your projects because when we when we coordinate on the years where we're showing funding, it's often with input from the FAA on what they see other requests from the national or from their regional system and what they're going to be able to fund. So obviously it's a lot more than the runway reconstruction is a lot more than the area in red, and it's something that we could talk about, but we would, I imagine our priority is our runway, and that's what we're going to focus on. If there's an opportunity to, if it looks like for some reason that wouldn't happen and we wouldn't be able to move forward with utilizing dollars, then certainly.
I just wanted to make sure we asked. Thank you.
Oh, sure.
I had a comment, a question, actually. Director Freitas and I have talked about this in the past, with the Colson helicopter parked on the abandoned part of the runway. It takes that area away from fixed wing aircraft as a safety area. As a place where if someone's losing an engine, they have that extra 1,000 feet of runway where they could potentially put a plane down. Would it be possible in that almost $80 million to find a few dollars to build a helipad in the infield between Gulf and the runway and park Colson's helicopter there, as opposed to keeping on the abandoned part of the runway, which takes away that safety margin for fixed wing aircraft? That's something that could be considered, looked at.
So
I don't
sure.
mean to put you on the spot. I realize,
No,
I
I mean,
realize it's a big ask, but it's just something that I think it's worth considering, given that 1,000 feet of runway does provide a safety
Sure.
margin.
Yes, the answer is yes, and I was not joking that the ALP update is a perfect place to recommend those kind of, because we look at the infrastructure. Right, so hey, this is something that it looks like it's gonna be with us Colson for a long time, we all hope, I think. So that's a perfect location for some of that.
To be continued. Thank you, Laura.
All right, if there's no more questions for Camarillo Airport projects, then I'll move on to Oxnard. Yes.
First, I appreciate that there's pilots on this board because I wouldn't have known about the runoff, but I do understand various places where semi trucks have a runoff. So I appreciate the chair asking that question. The question that I have, you're talking about the airport runway repair, rebuild. And you mentioned, I believe I heard you say stage. It was a discussion that we had in Oxnard when they were going to do the runway in stages, and then it was decided to do the whole thing and shut the airport down. Is that potentially going to happen here? And if it, these are multiple questions, but and if it does, the business that's taking place in Camarillo will go to Oxnard? Is that kind of in the mix?
So that is what the final design will include in the analysis. So the runway design and the answers are complicated. We don't meet current FAA design standards, and once we embark upon a reconstruction, we will be required to. Because it varies greatly from our current site conditions, it meeting the FAA requirements will make it very difficult to start reconstructing the runway in phases and keep operations going. And so we are working with the FAA on if there's any alternatives. And then when I talked about phasing, I was actually referring that the FAA has indicated that the funding may be phased. And so we have to figure out how we're going to accomplish a project that, and accomplish it with those parameters and those limitations. And so as part of the preliminary design, which we are investigating right now, we're working with the FAA to look at the possibilities to perhaps not fully meet FAA design standards and to get confirmation on what that process will look like. And I believe there might have been a letter that was included in a prior packet in prior meetings that indicated our request for a discussion with the FAA on that very topic.
Thank you. These are public meetings and the public has an opportunity to listen and learn just as the board is. But any new business that we solicit to come in here, are we giving them an update that this may come shortly? I mean, if I'm, for example,
sure,
I'm going to build a building, I'm going to do all kinds of business, I'm going to borrow a bunch of money, and then all of a sudden this comes up and nobody told, are we protecting ourselves this way?
Well, certainly our capital improvement plan is a publicly available document that, and I would say that all the businesses or the larger businesses, the FBOs on our airfield are aware of the project time, and they actually track it closely and are ready to jump in on the final design to provide their input. So as we have new business, I'm certain that is just a natural part of our discussions is it would be to bring up the planned right now, the airport is planning reconstruction in 2026 if we're able to secure funding.
Thank you very much.
Ron.
Thank you. Just something that spurred from Councilmember Perello's question just now. I hope that folks that are viewing this who either are tenants or potential tenants of the airports in the future, or Camarillo Airport specifically, can remember that the County of Ventura is the owner of the property, specifically the Department of Airports. And as the landlord has a very public process in things like our capital improvement program, and knowing that this is all public Whereas if I were a business owner at a private shopping center, I may or may not know what the owner of that property is going to do in the next 5 years. They may hint at things, they may tell me, hey, I'm thinking about this, or they may be very hands-off and I just pay my lease and do my business until I hear, hey, in 2 years, I'm gonna raise it and we're gonna build houses here, right? So, that was a really important point, I think, that he brings up, that, there are certainly disclosures that can go out to tenants, but for any tenants watching or the general public, know that these are all very public processes, and they're all public meetings, public documents that are accessible. So folks know what to expect of the airport. And from just the resident side of things, knowing what potential construction and projects will be happening in the next 5 years as well, and be aware of that too. So anyways, thank you for that question of Councilor Pro.
All right, if we could show Oxnard Airport. So the total projects over the next 5 years, although it doesn't total 80 million, is still fairly significant at a little over 27 million for Oxnard. I did neglect for Camarillo to mention that federal funding is anticipated at a 90% funding level. And then Caltrans is usually 5% of the federal dollars. However, our plan, if you actually do the math, it doesn't equal 5%. And that's because the Caltrans Aeronautics typically caps their maximum at 150,000. So if your project is a large one, you don't get the full 5%, and that difference is on the airport sponsor to provide. And so you'll see that, that the airport share ends up picking that up. For the projects in 2023 and 2028 that we are programming, we start with a taxiway reconstruction of Foxtrot, which is in the red. We are currently finalizing design, and we are working to hopefully get out, begin the bid period at the end of May, and hopefully secure funding this year from the federal government to get that project done. We also have a facility assessment for the air traffic control tower that we actually have completed and have the draft assessment that we just need to review and final. And that assessment is going to feed into several phases of improvements to the air traffic control tower. In 2024, we begin that phase 1, and then we will continue that in 2025. We mentioned there's actually a different program of funding that's available for air traffic control tower improvements. It's called the FCTBIL grant. Please don't ask me what that means at the moment, because I'm forgetting what the acronym is. But it is a competitive program, and if we are able to secure funding, then we'll move forward, and it doesn't impact our AIP dollars. We're also looking to design the reconstruction of the terminal apron, which is in yellow, as well as the ARF pavement. And ARF stands for our airfield, it's our fire facility that we have on the airport at the Oxnard Airport, and we're looking to reconstruct that pavement. In 2025, we'll continue on with the rehabilitation of the air traffic control tower. We will move into design for the West Hangar apron area that is depicted in green. And then in 2026, and I just want to preface that the FAA requests that as we program design grants, that we have a gap year before we show construction. And so you'll see that in 2024, we did the design for the terminal apron, and then in 2026, we're looking to construct it. The same in 2025, where we're looking to design the rehabilitation of the West Hangar apron. We're looking in 2027 to construct it. And then we are also in 2027 looking to purchase our vehicle. Sorry. And in 2028, we'll continue our process and maintaining the airport and look to design for various pavements, including the central apron, executive hangar area, and a portion of the transient apron.
I have a question with reference to the CIP. Does it includes sewer and water? There are some hangars east of the control tower that are fairly large, and I've been asked about is it a part of the CIP? Do you get fund from the FAA? Is it local? Or you do it through the city? Could you address that, please?
So the airport improvement program does not include any infrastructure or facilities that are hangar related. So those items are not eligible under the improvement plan. Depending on, if you're talking about water and sewer to hangar developments, it most likely is an improvement that the development would be responsible for.
Okay.
Unless it's a county owned facility.
Well, it's a mix. I think the county owns some and some of them are private, but I don't know the details.
Well, I'm happy if you want to.
Sure. We can talk about it offline.
I had noticed, I think it was 2027, there
Yes.
was going to be a new fire truck for Oxnard. At one point, Director Freitas had discussed getting a used one from sister airport. Is that still in the works?
Yes, so we have a unit that was donated from Burbank. It's going through the process to get approval by the board to accept that gift. It was actually donated, no cost. And we're looking at a secondary unit for a minimal cost from SFO. That too would go through the process of approval. So in process. So we have as you saw Aaron put on as a place marker. But if those units materialize as we hope, we probably will get 5 to 7 years at least out of them before so we will just push that request.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
On any of the diagrams with the colored yellow, green, red, any of those projects start, is it going to shut down the airport while those projects are ongoing?
It shouldn't, no.
Thank you. Thank you for this update also. Just thinking kind of far ahead on this one, as grants are applied for and, fingers crossed, awarded by the federal government and any other grant opportunities that come up. As we're able to move forward in phases for each of these projects, I would just like to request that Department of Airports look to engage the neighborhood councils of the neighborhoods that surround the airport. So they're kept up to date on each phase of these projects, maybe even reaching out to let them know of the CIP so they can look forward themselves as a neighborhood on these items. And the only reason I ask is I was formerly the chair of the Fremont South neighborhood, which is the upper right corner of the picture there on the other side of Ventura Road. And I was appreciative to learn of the runway reconstruction project when that was coming up and attend that and be able to inform my neighborhood about that and my residents. So just wanted to throw that out there just so our airport staff can hear that and keep that in the back of their minds as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to second this thing. The neighborhoods are the ones that can raise Cain, and they can also be your best friend if they know what's going on. And they can avoid what the Acorn reported about misinformation, keeping them informed. That's excellent idea.
Thank you, Ms. Powers.
All right. Thank you.
Any public comments on the capital improvement plan?
Chairs, there is no members of the public wishing to speak on this item.
Any further authority comment? Capital improvement, plan? Seeing none. From the Camarillo side of the house, do we have a motion to approve the 5-year capital improvement plan?
I will move to approve staff's recommendations 1 and 2.
I'll second.
Can we get a roll call?
For the Camarillo Airport Authority Supervisor Long,
Yeah.
Supervisor Vice Chair Lopez,
Yes.
Mayor Santangelo,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez Bravo,
Yes.
Chair Bearer.
Yes.
We get a motion to approve the 5-year capital improvement plan.
So, yes. So moved.
Second.
Been motion and second in the roll call.
For Oxnard Airport Authority Supervisor Long,
Yes.
Supervisor Vice Chair Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Perrello,
Yes.
Councilmember Tehran,
Yes. Chair
Chair Fussell. That motion passes unanimous. Thank you.
Next up, Director Freitas' report.
All right, we're getting close to the end. All the pilots listening will be happy to hear that AVEX Aviation has put back in service the South Serve Island at Camarillo. In the 18 months I've been here, that's been one of the questions asked, and it's finally back in service. I want to recognize Barb Wilkins is here. We had this request. There was a question from Camarillo neighbors that the new VNOMS flight tracking system that we have purchased and installed might not be correct in the flight tracks and the tracking that it's reporting. Barb did a fabulous job of doing 9 perfect touch and goes loops. And we were able to visualize both myself personally and then Jeanette from our office went out and spent a few hours verifying. So I want to recognize her for doing that. And by the way, they were spot on with the flight tracking. She is also working with a fellow pilot, Eric Nelson, to do, and so I've heard a few questions about this from our folks that are concerned about noise, is they're doing a video where out of the belly of the airplane actually shows the flight track so that we can put online to show the pilots what the visual is of where we actually want them to fly, not over the homes, where to power back and things like that. So that's in the making and very close. So again, thank Barb for that work as well, and also Eric Nelson with him. Those that drove up Las Posas saw Cloud 9 hangar is close to being operational and reported the first customer is expected to be in the facility in June. Golden West Aviation, FBO, only FBO over at Oxnard, is the first of the 2 airports facilities to be selling the unleaded fuel. So we're happy that happened a couple weeks ago. Had their first customers. So again, good, and we expect that transition to happen in the next few years. Again, EPA, FAA will be determining what that transition period will be. Did complete some security upgrades to the fuel tanks here at Camarillo. New lighting, security fencing, and then some K-rails for barricades. I do want to recognize Councilmember Perrello and Tehran for their assistance. We had some concerns from neighbors about some soil from the construction project that we started a month ago at Oxnard. Had some concerns about noise in the evening, at night, the transportation, and then the storage of the soil itself. They helped us working with the community and getting some of those answers. So far, been good, and we've been working with a contractor to try to minimize some of those noise concerns and other issues. And they helped us put out, city did some news releases about what was going on. And we'll do better in the future and advance notice of some of those things. So here's some of the pictures that we have of the construction project. Again, these are the connectors for connect to the runway that we replaced a couple of years ago at Oxnard. So these are the connectors we're working on right now. I do want to recognize a partnership Supervisor Long is part of the RDP 21 team that went back to Washington DC. We partnered with RDP 21 folks, and they had a brochure that they were distributing, and we made sure that the airports were included. And I talked earlier about the importance of two very different airports, and then don't have to read through that very small language, but in there it talks about the two airports in Ventura County, along with Point Mugu and Port Hueneme, and all of those assets that this region has.
And thank you to Supervisor Lopez for being on there as well.
Both of you made the trip. Excellent. And that is, oh, last thing I want to talk about is the private hangars. As I mentioned a few times before, 224 hangars, and we only have 35 left to inspect. So 35 left to inspect, and now it's just getting through the final paperwork. So we're almost there. And that's it, unless there's any questions.
I'd just like to follow up on your comments regarding Barb Pilkins. It seems that whenever there's a public need or a public service, Barb's there to offer her time and her expertise, whether it's Young Eagles, flights for the VNOM system. She truly exemplifies public service. I just wanted to call her out and recognize her for that. I think she's a true asset to our aviation community here in Ventura County.
Agreed.
Mr. Perlo.
Director Freitas has given some compliments for myself and my fellow councilmen. I'd like to share with the board. Director Freitas jumped on it, and Ms. Powers very instrumental in helping the issue get resolved. Greatly appreciated. We had residents that had very valid concerns, and our director of airports took care of it. And I want to thank you publicly here. It's a matter of just somebody rattled my cage and I rattled his cage, and he took care of the problem. He knew what to do. And it's appreciated by a lot of people on our side. I want to share that. It was that I'm doing special. You did the job. Thank you. I know that's your job, but you did it. Thank you very much. Because some of the people were getting ready to just go with a lot of, misinformation all over the place. Thank you. And I would like to ask during your report, if you can just mention you're putting a fence around the field also.
We are putting a fence around the 11 acres that is supposed to be finished tomorrow, this Friday. So we're doing that as well. Lastly, I do want to recognize again, council members Santangelo and Martinez Bravo. Talk about the communication, and that helped us with the misinformation that was going out about and the email that came out and the news blast was, Amazon's coming and 50 flights a day. And the misinformation was horrific, but it was, partnering with these two that got us that information as quickly as possible so that we could help address that. I won't lie, there were 161 angry people but after an hour and a half of telling them the facts, Aaron, Dave Nafee, all did a fabulous job of helping with the consultants to talk to everybody off the edge and provide the factual information. It was a team effort. Lauren and again, the community members that we have built a relationship with helped us, here's the reality of what this happened.
Thank you. Any comments, questions on the director's report? Mr. Nafee, we have items 8 and 9, reports and correspondence. Is there anything we need to do on those? Or just part of the agenda?
I think it's your call.
Okay. Any comments on the reports? Item 8. Any public comment on item 8?
Oh, no public comments are pending.
Any comment from the authorities on item 9, correspondence?
I'm grateful that the Acorn covered the issue about the misinformation.
Yeah, I agree. Any public comment on the correspondence?
No public comment, Chair.
And we're at item 10, comments by authority members. Supervisor Lopez.
Thank you. In the report, there was some of the correspondence included the Young Eagles Rally event from March, and that reminded me that there's one upcoming in June. So I know we're a little ahead. We do still have another authority meeting in June, but just to kind of help get the word out because it has been a really great program. I think there was a really great video that was put together from the last one. So the next Young Eagles Rally, an opportunity for any youth ages 8 to 7 to come and experience the airport is taking place on June 17th from 12 to 4 at the Oxnard Airport. And you do need to sign up ahead of time, but I think we can get that information out for anyone who is interested. And just again, thank you to all those who have been proactively working to engage the community into the airport. So just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Supervisor Long.
Thank you. Bill Thomas wanted me to pass this along to everyone. I told him he's more than welcome to do public comment. But this is so key. I wanted to say it. We have our Wings of Camarillo coming August 19th and 20th. Just appreciate all the volunteers and community members, all the businesses for attending. I know it's a lot for staff. We have an FA-18E TAY demo is going to be there. Our 70th year, we have a 70th year end of the Korean conflict. And so we're having Captain Royce Williams of USN retired as the Grand Marshal. Just to note, he was just awarded the Navy Cross for shooting down a 4 MiG-15S. So it's exciting and be prepared. It'll be more to come, but put it on your calendar. Thank you.
Wings over Camarillo is a must see. It's truly, Bill and his team does such a great job with that. It gets better every year. Any other comments from the authority members?
Yeah, I like to make some comments.
Dr. Fussell.
I think that I've always thought that you should give flowers while people can smell them. I want to again thank Barb Filkins for all the work that she does. She does a lot more than what was mentioned. Very active in the EAA, and she prepares a lecture every month, sometimes two. But anyway, I think that overall things are improving, and I'd like to give kudos to the director and the staff. Thank you.
Thank you. My only comment is just to extend my gratitude for every single director who is here and our community who continues to contribute with their concerns as well, and to Director Freitas and to staff for really great presentations and for helping to make this meeting very efficient. Thank you.
Any other comments? Mr. Tron.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to take this part of the agenda to thank Director Freitas and his staff, as well as Councilor Perrello, for addressing the item that was brought up earlier regarding the construction of the taxiway out at Oxnard Airport and the temporary storage of the dirt that's excavated from there at the 11 acres that are across Ventura Road. And the residents who brought it up, Councilor Perrello got it and then went to the director, and that was handled, and proper information was able to be provided for folks so they could know what was going on and understand how long they could expect to see that for, and understanding why the construction was happening overnight. So thank you again for handling that. And I was able to take the information you sent and sent that to the neighborhood council as well, for the Fremont South Neighborhood Council to share with their residents who are directly adjacent to the parcel where the dirt's being stored. And I do go through that area almost daily. We have our navigation center for our unhoused population there on K Street. And, that being within walking distance of my home, I'm there regularly, just checking things out, seeing how things are, picking up trash sometimes, and engaging with folks. But I have noticed the fence being built, and just looking at where it was today, I think you're right, it will be completed probably tomorrow. And I appreciate the work that's being done there. And just to kind of continue my comments from the previous item, anytime we have info that can be shared with our surrounding neighborhoods, I believe we have Sierra, Cabrillo, Fremont South, Wilson, just off the top of my head. I think that'd be great to have them have that information front loaded. So that way they know what to expect, or if questions come to them from residents, they might have something they can send to them as well. So again, thank you for the efforts on that, and looking forward to continuing that. Last thing, I'd be remiss if I didn't use this public opportunity to wish all of the mothers a happy Mother's Day, or those who acted as mothers. And we had a Mother's Day yesterday, traditional Mother's Day in Mexico, and we have the International Mother's Day this Sunday. So just want to throw that out there too.
Thank you. And I celebrate twice.
Mr. Perrella.
When it comes time to close, can we close the meeting for the people whose lives were lost? Jeff left Magoo and crashed in San Clemente. Off the island of San Clemente.
I think that's appropriate. If there are no other comments, we'll adjourn the meeting in honor of the people who lost their lives today flying out of Point Magoo, an aircraft that went down somewhere near San Clemente Island. We hope that their families find comfort. The next meeting is Thursday, June 8th at 6:30. That we're adjourned.